The wind screamed like 1,000 dying voices, and through the blur of pounding rain, the boy saw the man collapse. He didn't know why his legs moved, why he dashed across the flooded street, but something in that frail silhouette, broken under the weight of the storm, called out to him louder than hunger ever had. They called him Stitch, not because he was good at sewing wasn't, but because of the ragged scar that ran from his left eyebrow down to his jaw, like someone had tried to stitch his face back together and given up halfway. Stitch had lived on the streets of Chicago's South Side since he was 9. He was 14 now. 5 years of cold nights, stale bread, running from cops, avoiding gangs. 5 years of learning to read people faster than books, to hear lies in their voices, and truths they didn't mean to say. The old man looked like he had no business being out here. He wasn't homeless. Stitch knew the type. This one had a suit, even if it was soaked and wrinkled, and shoes that cost more than Stitch made in a month of scrapping copper and snatching wallets. But what caught Stitch wasn't the clothes. It was the way the man looked when he fell. Not like someone tripping, like someone giving up. "Hey!" Stitch shouted as he reached him, crouching by the collapsed figure. "You okay, old man?" The man didn't respond. His lips were blue, eyes half open, glassy, one hand clutching something to his chest. Stitch looked around. No one was out. Not tonight. The city had warned everyone about the storm. But storms didn't care about warnings, and they didn't care about kids like Stitch. Grunting, Stitch pulled the man's arm over his shoulder. The guy was lighter than he looked. Or maybe Stitch was stronger than he felt. A street lamp buzzed and popped as they passed beneath it. Light flickered over the man's face. Thin, gaunt, but not from poverty. From something else. "Come on, don't die," Stitch muttered. "Not in my arms. That's some Lifetime movie junk I ain't got time for." He half-dragged, half-carried the man to a small loading dock behind a shut-down convenience store. The awning barely shielded them from the rain, but it was something. Stitch set him down gently, back against the brick wall, then stripped off his hoodie and wrapped it around the man's shoulders. The man stirred. "You shouldn't have helped me," he said hoarsely, eyes fluttering open. "You don't know what you've done." Stitch froze. That voice wasn't scared. It was angry, but not at him. At something bigger. "You want me to just leave you in the gutter next time?" Stitch snapped. "Old people say weird stuff, but that's a new one." "I'm not angry at you," the man whispered. "I'm just surprised and afraid." "Afraid of what?" "Of what you'll become." That sent a chill up Stitch's spine that had nothing to do with the weather. The man smiled faintly, then coughed. Blood on his lip. "Kid," he said, "listen to me. My name is Albert Holloway. If anyone asks, you didn't meet me. You didn't see me tonight." Stitch stared at him. "Dude, I just dragged your dying body through a hurricane. You think I'm gonna forget that?" Albert's eyes locked onto his. "I know what you're thinking, but this isn't about saving a life. It's about what saving this life will cost you." Stitch looked away. "This some magic crap? Mafia crap? You think I believe any of that?" Albert didn't answer right away. When he did, his voice was quieter. "I used to be like you. Different time, different city. But I had the same heart. I helped someone I wasn't supposed to. And everything changed. Everything." The rain softened for a moment, as if listening. Albert reached into his coat and pulled out a thin leather-bound book. It looked old. Water-warped edges. A strange silver crest on the front. He handed it to Stitch with trembling hands. "Take it. Hide it. Don't read it until the day you feel like there's nothing left. Not one damn thing. That's when you'll understand." Stitch hesitated, then took the book. Albert nodded. "Now go." "No," Stitch said stubbornly. "You'll die if I leave." Albert's gaze didn't waver. "Then let me die?" And just like that, like someone turned off a switch, the man stopped breathing. Stitch sat there, stunned, the storm washing over him like a dream, trying to erase the scene. Dead people didn't scare him. He'd seen too many. But this felt different. Like the end of something that hadn't even started yet. The cops showed up the next morning. Someone found the body, called it in. Stitch was long gone by then, sleeping in a laundromat 3 blocks away, clutching the book like a lifeline. He tried to forget, tried to go back to stealing and scraping and surviving. But the book itched. Not literally, but in his mind. Like it hummed when he got too close. Whispered when he almost tossed it in the trash. He couldn't read it. Not yet. Not until there was nothing left. 2 weeks passed. Then came the day when Stitch found his spot under the highway bridge taken over by a crew of older boys with knives and tattoos, and nothing to lose. They beat him bloody. Stole everything. He limped back to the alley near Grant Park, lay against the dumpster, and watched snow begin to fall. His stomach hurt. His ribs hurt more. But what hurt worst was the silence. No one coming. No one looking. No one even noticing. And that's when he opened the book. The cover hissed as it moved. Not a sound books should make. Like air escaping from something long sealed. Inside were words he didn't understand. Symbols that shimmered. Pages that felt warm to the touch. And in the middle a letter. Addressed to him. To the boy who saved me. This is not a thank you. This is a warning. You are now part of something you can never walk away from. There is a war coming. Not with guns. Not with bombs. But with memory. And blood. And names that should never be spoken. You've seen what I was. What I tried to bury. Now you will see what it becomes. Choose carefully. The world doesn't give second chances. But sometimes, people do. A. Holloway. Stitch's hands shook. A war? Memories? What the hell had he stumbled into? Then he flipped the page. And saw his own name Stitch Holloway scrawled at the top. But he'd never written it. And he sure as hell wasn't related to that old man. Was he? Stitch didn't move for a long time. The snow kept falling, burying the alley in white silence. But the name on the page glowed like fire in his mind. Stitch Holloway. He'd made up that name when he was 11, stealing a hoodie with the name Stitch stitched on the inside tag. Holloway was just a street sign he'd passed one night when he needed a fake last name for a shelter form. No one was supposed to know. No one could have known. Yet there it was written in ink darker than blood, on paper older than him. A name that wasn't just made up anymore. A name that meant something. He turned the page, slow like it might explode. There were more letters. Sketches. Diagrams. None of it made sense. Symbols that hurt his head to look at too long. Spirals. Eyes. Stars that weren't stars. But the writing when he focused at it started to feel familiar. Like he'd dreamed it before. Or remembered it from a story someone told when he was a baby. One line stood out, scrawled in uneven, shaky writing. The child of the forgotten always returns. The blood remembers. Stitch shut the book. His breath came fast. Not from fear exactly, but from the weight of knowing. Something about this was real. It wasn't a prank or some junkie's diary. This was about him. And Albert Holloway. And whatever war he'd mentioned. A memory flashed behind his eyes. Albert lying in the storm, eyes glazed, mouth still murmuring even as his heart stopped. Like he was talking to someone who wasn't there. Maybe he was. That night, Stitch didn't sleep. He limped to an abandoned school he sometimes used for shelter, crawled through a broken window, and curled up in a supply closet with the book pressed to his chest. And just before he drifted off, he heard it. A voice. Soft. Inside his head. He shouldn't have touched the book. He jerked awake, but no one was there. Not yet. The next morning, things changed. Everywhere Stitch went, people stared longer than usual. Not everyone, but certain people. A man in a trench coat who watched him too long near the bus depot. A woman on the train platform with eyes that never blinked. Even a kid 6, maybe 7 with gray irises and a knowing smile. It wasn't paranoia. It was recognition. They saw him. Not just a homeless kid in stolen sneakers, but something else. Something they were looking for. And wherever he went, the book seemed to get heavier. Like it wanted to be somewhere else. He thought about ditching it, tossing it in the river or stuffing it down a sewer grate. But his fingers wouldn't let go. On the third day, it happened. Stitch was near the Navy Pier, warming his hands over a vent, when he felt it like air sucking out of the world. The sky dimmed. People stopped talking. Even the seagulls vanished. Then came the cold. Not snow cold. Bone cold. Like death had walked into the city and decided to sit for a while. He turned. There were 3 of them. Men or things wearing the shape of men, dressed in long coats, heads uncovered despite the storm. Their eyes were milky, lips pale, hands gloved in something too dark to be leather. They didn't speak. They just walked toward him. Stitch ran. He ducked behind kiosks, leapt fences, cut across frozen streets with the speed only desperation could fuel. But the men didn't run. They didn't have to. Every time he looked back, they were closer. Like the world bent to them. Shortened distances. Tilted streets. He made it to a subway station. Jumped the turnstile. Barreled down the steps 2 at a time. A train was pulling indoors opening. He didn't think. Just dove inside. The doors closed. And one of the men smiled at him from the platform. A slow, awful smile. Not a threat. A promise. The next person who helped him was named Raina. She was 17, maybe 18, with braids pulled back in a tight bun, a scar over one eyebrow, and a look in her eye that said, "I don't trust easy, and neither should you." She found him passed out in the back corner of the train, bleeding from a gash on his arm he didn't remember getting. "You're lucky I saw you," she said, tying off the wound with part of her own shirt. "They don't usually leave their prey alive." Stitch blinked groggily. "Prey?" She gave him a flat look. "The pallid ones. That's what you saw. Skin like old snow? Eyes like spoiled milk." He nodded. Raina sat back on her heels. "Yeah. You touched the book, didn't you?" He didn't answer. She scoffed. "Thought so. No one ever listens. You find a weird book in a dead man's coat and think, 'Hey, this won't ruin my life forever.'" "Who are you?" he whispered. "Someone who touched the wrong thing, too. 3 years ago. My sister didn't make it. I've been hiding ever since." Stitch stared at her. "What do they want?" She hesitated, then pointed to his chest. "That. The book. But more than that, you. The book chooses someone when it's ready. And now it's chosen you." "I don't want it," he said. "That doesn't matter." They hid in a boiler room beneath an old church. Raina had food, flashlights, maps, books with titles like The Hollow Histories and The Memory Wars. She showed him symbols like the ones in his book and taught him how to draw a few. "This one's a ward," she said, sketching a rough shape on the wall. "It won't stop them, but it'll slow them down." He watched wide-eyed. So magic, kind of, more like ancient memory, stuff that existed before words. And the book. Raina sat back. "That book belonged to the Holloway line. Your family." "My family." She nodded. "I know how it sounds, but I've seen the patterns. Names. Places. The book shows up in the bloodline every few decades. Always finds a new bearer. I don't have a family. You do now?" That night, Stitch opened the book again. The pages were different. New entries. A map of the city, but with marks in places no one remembered. A list of names crossed out, one by one. At the bottom of the page, in fresh ink, "The key lies where the storm began." He remembered. The alley. The rain. Albert Holloway dying in his arms. The storm hadn't been weather. It had been summoned. And now it wanted to finish what it started. Stitch stood in the alley where Albert Holloway had died, the book clenched in his hand like a weapon. The street was quiet now. No storm. No blood. Just peeling bricks, a broken dumpster, and the faint echo of something terrible that had once been here. Raina waited near the corner, keeping watch. He stepped forward, his breath fogging in the air. "Where the storm began," he whispered. As if hearing him, the wind shifted. Cold pressed in from all sides. Shadows deepened, and beneath his feet, the ground throbbed like a heartbeat in the concrete. He knelt and flipped open the book. The page that had held the map was now blank. Then, slowly, words began to form in shimmering ink. "To open the door, you must remember what was taken." "What does that mean?" he muttered. Raina stepped closer. "It's asking for memory. The strongest kind. Something that still hurts." He swallowed. Only one memory came fast and hot and bitter. The night his mother left. He'd been 9. She'd kissed his forehead, promised to come back. She never did. He waited 3 days in that apartment before the landlord kicked him out. After that, it was alleys and stations in fear. I remember, he said out loud, voice shaking. I remember waiting until it got dark. I remember thinking maybe she forgot the way back. I remember lying about it, telling other kids she died, that she didn't choose to leave. The ink on the page shimmered brighter. Then, right beneath the words, a symbol began to form a spiral around a single eye, drawn in fluid, graceful curves. Stitch traced it with his finger. The moment he touched it, the wall behind him shuddered. Bricks began to split. Slowly, soundlessly, they peeled away, revealing not a passage, not a door, but a void. Black, endless, whispering. What the hell? Stitch breathed. Raina's hand grabbed his shoulder. Don't step through unless you're ready. Ready for what? For what's on the other side. Inside the void, there was no light. But he could see. Not with eyes. With memory. Images swirled around him, fragments of Albert Holloway's life. A childhood in a crumbling manor. A sister who vanished into the woods. A secret room beneath the floorboards. Then fire. Screams. Shadows that walked like men. Then more. Visions not his, not Albert Salda. People in cloaks, chanting in languages lost to time. A book passed from hand to hand. Wars fought in silence. Cities buried in snow not made of water, but of forgetting. Then a face. The same face from the alley. Albert Holloway, only younger. Standing in front of a throne made of roots. Speaking to something that looked almost human, but whose eyes were older than death. You will serve us, the thing had said, until your line is finished. Then, Stitch gasped, stumbling forward, out of the void. He landed hard on marble. Real, polished marble. He looked up. He was no longer in Chicago. He was standing inside a vast circular chamber, domed ceiling above him carved with stars that moved. Shelves lined the walls, stretching higher than he could see, filled with books that whispered softly. Raina stepped out behind him, breathless. You found it, she said. What is this place? She walked forward slowly. The archive. The real one. The memory of memory. Where all forgotten things go. How? You proved you were ready, she said. The book opened the path. He turned, holding the book. It now pulsed gently in his hands. Why did Albert give this to me? He asked. Raina hesitated. Because his line ended with him, she said quietly. But the war didn't. And the book had to choose again. Blood or not. But I'm not him. No, she said. But you're enough like him to matter. Then she pointed. At the far end of the chamber, where a figure stood robed in black, facing away, hands clasped behind their back. They turned, and Stitch's heart stopped. It was Albert Holloway, or something wearing his face. But his eyes were different now. Brighter. Hungrier. I told you not to follow, the figure said calmly. But you never could leave well enough alone. Stitch stepped back. You died. I did, the thing said. But death, for some of us, is just a transition. I gave you the book because I couldn't carry it anymore. But I never said I was finished. Raina reached for a symbol on her arm, drawing light from her skin like a blade. The figure raised a hand, and the room shook. Books burst into flame. The air turned heavy. You brought a soldier, the thing said. Cute. You're not Albert, Stitch said. No, the figure replied. I'm what he became. What all bearers eventually risk becoming. Stitch gritted his teeth. I'm not like you. The thing's smile twisted. No, it said. But you will be. The fight was not like anything Stitch had seen before. No fists. No bullets. It was memory twisted, sharpened, turned into weapons. The figure launched visions of Stitch's mother abandoning him, of sleeping in freezing rain, of people turning away as he cried for help. Each memory struck like a blade. But Raina fought back with her own memories. Her sister laughing in the sun. Her first taste of real food. Her father's lullaby. They flared like shields, blocking the pain. Stitch knelt, clutching the book. It was glowing now. pages flipping on their own. He heard a voice, Albert's true voice, echoing from within it. You can't kill the past, but you can choose what to carry. And then he understood. The book wasn't just a burden. It was a mirror. It only had power if he let it. He stood, faced the creature, and spoke not with hate, but with forgiveness. I forgive her, he said, tears burning. I forgive myself. I forgive the world. The chamber rippled. The shadows screamed. The creature lunged too late. The book burst with light, and from it, a wave of warmth memory made peace swept through the room. And the figure disintegrated. Not in pain. In release. Albert Holloway's face softened. His final words whispered into the void. Thank you. When it was over, the chamber stood silent again. Books unburned. Stars steady. The door behind them opened. Raina turned to Stitch. You won, she said. He looked at the book. No, he replied. I chose. Raina was the first to move. She stepped over the ashes left behind by the shadow of Albert, looking around the massive circular archive. Her face was pale, her hands trembling from the echo of power that had just surged through the chamber. But her voice was steady. We have to leave. That light, it wasn't just a weapon. It was a flare. Stitch furrowed his brow. A flare. She nodded, eyes scanning the shelves. Others felt it. The ones still loyal to the hollow crown. The ones who think you shouldn't be holding that book. He looked down. The book was still warm in his hands. Not burning now, just alive. Its cover glowed faintly with that silver crest, pulsing like a heartbeat. Pages shifted in the windless air, as if responding to breath. For the first time, he didn't feel like it was a curse. He felt like it was listening. Stitch's voice came out quieter than he expected. What was that thing we just fought? It wasn't Albert. Not really. Raina stepped beside him. It was what remained after Albert broke, she said. The book doesn't just record memory. It feeds on it, reflects it. If you carry it too long without healing, it takes your worst moments and makes them louder, more real, until they drown everything else out. So he became his worst self. Exactly. He gave you the book not to pass on knowledge but to be free of it. Stitch swallowed. And now it's mine. Only if you choose to keep it. He held it tighter. I do. Raina blinked. You sure? He nodded. No one should carry this alone. Not again. Not like him. She stared at him for a long moment. Then smiled. Just a flicker. Okay, she said. Then we better get moving. They exited the archive through a different passage, narrow, steep, hidden behind a shelf labeled Unwritten Futures. It led them through a winding tunnel of smooth black stone, humming softly underfoot, as if memory itself pulsed beneath their feet. As they walked, Stitch asked, What happens now? I mean, what do I do with this? Raina exhaled slowly. There's a place. A safe house. In the old subway tunnels under the west side. People like us toes who've touched the archive, survived the memory storms, resisted the hollow crown they gather there. Train. Watch. Protect the lines. Stitch frowned. Lines. Bloodlines, she clarified. Every bearer is connected, whether they know it or not. The Holloway line was the oldest. You're part of it now by inheritance or by fate. Doesn't matter. You're in. They reached a set of iron doors at the end of the tunnel. No handle. No keyhole. Just a single circle carved into the metal. Raina nodded toward it. Touch it. The book will know. Stitch hesitated, then pressed his palm to the circle, the book tucked under his other arm. A warm light spread from beneath his hand. The doors groaned, ancient bolts unclicking like bones cracking after years of silence. And then light. Warm. Soft. Real. A massive underground atrium opened before them. It looked like an old train terminal, long abandoned but restored. Dozens of people moved inside. Teenagers. Adults. Even a few elders with tattoos like spirals across their arms and necks. Some were reading. Others were drawing memory sigils in chalk on the floor. One man floated 3 feet above the ground, legs crossed, eyes closed in deep focus. When Stitch stepped through, a hush fell over the space. Every head turned toward him. He froze. Raina stepped up, gently nudging his shoulder. "This is the boy who survived the archive," she said to no one in particular. And the last bearer gave him the book. The silence deepened. Then, slowly, a woman with silver braids stepped forward from the crowd. She wore a heavy coat lined with symbols worn, faded, but familiar. She looked at Stitch with eyes that had seen too much. Then she bowed and whispered, "Welcome home, Holloway." They gave Stitch a cot, a locker, 3 sets of clean clothes, hot food, and, maybe more importantly than all of that, they gave him space. No one asked questions the first night. No one pushed him. They just let him be. Raina sat with him on the stairs above the platform as he chewed on real bread for the first time in weeks. "You're not alone anymore," she said. He nodded. "I feel like I should be scared," he murmured. "But you're not." He shook his head. "I feel heavier. Like there's more inside me than there used to be. That's how it starts." He glanced at her. "What's it like living with this?" She looked toward the ceiling. "Some days it hurts. The memories that aren't yours. The pressure. The knowledge that you could disappear and someone else would just pick up the book like nothing happened. But then some days, you help someone. You protect something. You save a kid from being swallowed by what swallowed Albert. And it makes it all worth it." Stitch leaned back, watching dust float in the soft yellow light. "I don't want to be like him," he said. "You won't," Raina replied. "You're already not." The next morning, Stitch woke from a dream of fire. A city he didn't know. People screaming. Something rising from the earth, made of bones and ash and memory. When he opened the book, there it was, a new page. A prophecy. The day of hollow fires approaches. The bearer must choose. Unlock the gate or close it forever. Below that, a map. Only this time it wasn't a place he recognized. It was somewhere he hadn't been yet. And the book pulsed in his hand. Calling. They trained him over the next week. Raina showed him how to shape memory into defense, how to wrap a happy moment around his body like armor, how to take the sharp edges of his pain and use it to slice through illusion. He learned faster than anyone expected. Maybe because he had so much pain to draw from. Or maybe because the book had chosen well. On the 7th day, the elders gathered him in the center of the atrium. They handed him a new coat lined with stitched spirals, identical to Albert's, but untainted. The crest on the chest was his now. He was no longer just Stitch, the street boy. He was Stitch Holloway, keeper of the book. And there was work to be done. The train rumbled beneath the city, wheels screeching on old iron, as Stitch stared down at the map the book had revealed. It wasn't Chicago anymore. Not really. The lines were twisted, overlapping layers of memory and geography. The name on the station he was headed to had been lost to time. But it appeared in the book like a whisper, Ashend Hollow. Raina sat beside him, quiet, tracing the spiral scar on her wrist with her thumb. "They say it was the first place the Hollow Crown opened a gate," she said. "Long before our time. A memory too deep to erase." Stitch looked at her. "Why go back now?" She didn't answer right away. Then, "Because the gate isn't closed. Not fully. And the book thinks you're the only one who can do it." He felt the weight of it again, the silent pulse of power tucked inside his coat. But he didn't shrink from it now. He was ready. Or, at least, he had to be. Ashend Hollow wasn't on any modern map. The train let them off at a rusted-out platform surrounded by frost-bitten trees and fog that never lifted. The ground hummed beneath their boots, faint and uneven like it remembered footsteps that had once torn it apart. Old signs hung crooked, half swallowed by ivy. Most of the letters were gone. But one remained. Remember. They moved in silence, following the pull of the book deeper into the woods. No birds. No wind. Just the soft sound of snow underfoot and something else, an echo, like distant voices underwater. After an hour, they reached it. The gate. It wasn't a door. Not in any physical sense. It was a space in the trees, tall, narrow, cut into the fabric of reality itself. The air shimmered like oil on water. Symbols hung in the space like threads of light. And beyond idly blackness, Stitch stepped forward. The book burned hotter in his coat. Raina touched his arm. You go through alone. He turned to her. What if I don't come back? She met his gaze. Then we'll know you closed it. He nodded, heart hammering, and stepped through. The world on the other side wasn't a world at all. It was memory all memory twisting, looping, folding over itself like fabric soaked in grief. He saw cities burning, children crying, lovers saying goodbye in bomb shelters. He saw his own life, torn open and laid bare. His mother leaving, the nights under the bridge, the faces of those he'd stolen from, run from, watched die. He kept walking. He had to. And then he saw it. At the center of the storm, a figure. No face, no eyes, just a shape made of all the pain he had ever known. And it spoke. You carry the book, but not its price. I know, Stitch said. You carry memory, but not its weight. I do now. You want to close the gate? Yes. Then give us what was taken. Stitch hesitated and understood. The gate had been opened by a wound. It could only be closed by a gift. Something he couldn't fake, couldn't steal, couldn't survive without. Something true. I give you my name, he whispered. The memory storm paused. Stilled. I give up Stitch, he said. The scar, the fear, the boy the world ignored. Take him. Let him rest. The void trembled. And what will you be then? The voice asked. He looked down. At his hands. At the book. I'll be the one who remembers, he said. So others don't have to. Light burst outward from the gate. 1,000 memories flew past him, some joyous, some brutal, but none of them his anymore. He was standing in the archive again. But this time alone. The book was gone. And in its place, in his hand, a single page. Blank. Waiting. He woke in the atrium under the city. Raina was there. So were the elders. And dozens of faces he didn't recognize but who somehow all knew him. You closed it, she whispered. He nodded. Where's the book? Someone asked. Stitch smiled faintly. It's not needed anymore. They stared at him. What do we do now? One of the younger ones asked. He looked around. At all of them. At this strange, impossible family made of survivors, memory keepers, lost kids, and old soldiers. We live, Stitch said. And we tell the truth. Weeks passed. Then months. The hollow crown didn't fall. Not yet. But it stopped growing. Without the gate, without the book, their power thinned. And people, those who had forgotten who they were, began to remember. Raina stayed by his side. Sometimes they walked together through quiet streets where no one knew their names. Sometimes they taught. Sometimes they just sat in silence. Stitch never asked for another name. He didn't need one. He had become something else entirely. A memory, walking. A story that never ended in loss. And somewhere far beyond cities and storm and silency, a boy and an old man sat beneath a flickering street lamp. Rain poured down around them. And for the first time in years, they smiled.